there, this is Mike with Mana Bluff, doing something a little bit different today. Jumping into some Theros block constructed queues. I like the value a little bit more than some of the limited queues. Positive expected value is always a nice thing, and I've been able to kind of ride that wave a little bit, especially with this deck, and I'm enjoying it. I think it's pretty fun. So I'll get into the kind of nitty gritty of the things that you'll see, why I like the deck, kind of some of the matchups, and some of the sideboard plans. Um, Initially, the reason I kind of built the deck was I just happened to be messing around after some of the release queues of the sealed events for Born of the Gods, and I just lost a lot of tickets. So it was kind of low on resources, financially speaking. And I decided, hey, I'm just gonna hang out, look at the queues for a little bit. And I had a bunch of these cards, and I just happened to be able to build the deck for relatively cheap. All I had to do was buy an Erebos and and then all of these Herald of Torments, and I think one Thoughtseize, and then I had pretty much everything else from the queues that I had done. And so I figured this deck would end up being pretty cheap. And then I've been doing the block constructeds ever since. Like I said, it's been pretty fun, and I'm gonna keep playing it. So the way the deck really goes is mono black, obviously, kind of get the beats on, and then maybe finish out with a Grey Merchant or two. More often than not, you don't even need to get there. Uh, Four Thoughtseize, this card is sweet. It's just always sweet. You can easily win the game off of a turn one Thoughtseize. Just take the thing that sculpts their entire hand. Oftentimes, that happens more often than not against the Naya colored decks or the three colored decks, because you you discard their one Voyaging Satyr or Sylvan Caryatid in hand, and it's just game over. They can't get to where they need to get in quick enough time for you to be able to get there. Um, Painseer over here, this guy, is pretty sweet. More often than not, they kill it on sight because that extra card advantage is just so good, especially with no way to draw cards otherwise in the deck, or no like planeswalker type things that are gonna generate advantage by themselves. I don't think I really need to say more. Plus, 2/2 and 2, 2/2 for 2. It's always sweet. He's fun to bestow on. And if nothing else, it takes their premium removal, if you can call it premium removal and block constructed. It takes the Magma Jet's lightning strikes away from your Agent of Fates, which I'll get to in a second. So those are pretty sweet. Playing those full four of, always like them. Bioblights, playing them as a 3, hits pretty much all of the stuff you want it to hit. A lot of good things. The turn 2 Voyaging Satyrs, the doesn't hit Sylvan Caryatid, but hits a lot of the things that, like I said, like you wanted to hit. And there's been more than enough times where I've won through an Elspeth because kills Elspeth tokens. I don't think I need to say more. Night Howler, I'm a little bit down. I'm thinking maybe even potentially shaving down to 3 in the main deck. Night Howler is always sweet. It does require some work on both the opponent and my end to be able to make it awesome. The reason it's here is because more often than not, it might as well just be a 4-drop. Because the curve of Agent of Fates into Night Howler is just sweet, because automatically, even if nothing has died up to that point, the targeting of the Agent of the Fates will cause them to sacrifice a creature, and then Night Howler automatically comes +1/+1. If not, then there's a removal spell that hits the Agent of the Fates, and then Night Howler is a 1/1 at that point anyway. Plus, you got the targeting off, hopefully. So I think that discusses the Agent of the Fates there. Just any way to be able to target it. I haven't hit the point where I've wanted to target it with one of my removal spells yet, because I don't think that point exists. But I could see it happening. Hit it with a Bile Blight for whatever reason. I've had an opponent playing in the mirror target his own Agent of the Fates to try and get me to sacrifice something, so I just sacrificed my own Agent of Fates because the Bile Blight was played and it was going to die anyway. But I guess in theory I could see some world where that's awesome. Herald of Torment, these guys are so good. This is one of my favorite parts. Just having this guy in the air is awesome. The question comes down to on turn three if I've got Agent and Herald in hand, which I want to play, and a lot. If I'm able to turn one Thoughtseize, I feel like I'm already ahead, so it doesn't matter quite as much. But the question comes down to Herald dodges the removal, dodges more removal in the sense where Lightning Strike kills it, Magma Jet doesn't, but they have more ways to deal with it. Their Stormbreath Dragons can block it, or it's less of a threat than, say, Agent of the Fates in the sense where I have any way to target it. They have to start sacking dudes, but more removal hits it. That 2 toughness kind of blows. So it gets hit with by the Magma Jets and the Lightning Strikes. So it depends on how I can foresee the game going. If I want to just start removing resources from their hand, this is almost have to answer it on the spot, whereas this, they have a little bit more time because it is slightly less threatening. Removal, sweet. Hero's Downfall hits everything. I don't think I need I say more. Night Howler kind of went over those guys. They're pretty sweet. I've very rarely played a Night Howler on turn three, uh, but there are some occasions where Night Howler on turn three has a 1/1 or very rarely a 2/2, but it happens. Guild is kind of, I don't want to necessarily say a catch-all, but it is pretty sweet. Hits other things that Bile doesn't, um, and there are situations where I do maybe sometimes I can use that extra mana that the little piece of gold produces. Plus hits animated gods, which is pretty sweet because it exiles, doesn't destroy. So that's awesome. I haven't run into that situation yet where I've been able to do it. I've been pretty close to being able to exiling the Xenagos God of Revels, but didn't quite get there. Gray Merchant, because Gray Merchant, yeah, there's that guy's awesome. Hurts a little bit. It he's sweet enough where even if I flip it off of a Pain Seer and take 5, I'm still happy because I'm playing it there. And most of the time, there are a fair amount of times where I can get this into the game and then, or get to the point in the game where I just play Grey Merchant and win. And I know I kind of skipped over the Spiteful Returns because I moved them off to the side, but these things are sweet. They are a clock in and of themselves. They easily win the award for just chump attacking because the 2 damage that happens off of them is more than relevant. I'm thinking of going up 1 Spiteful Returned and maybe down a Night Howler because I do only have the 3 right here. Um, they've been a little bit better because I can play them on turn 2 into an empty board. They do sometimes soak up a removal spell, or if I can, not necessarily attack and then bestow something onto them, they themselves will eat up the removal spell, which is always sweet. Lands 24 total. I feel like it's a decent enough amount. I do want to get to 5, and I don't flood out all too much. There's things that I can do with the mana in terms of bestow and such. I like the Nykthos because there are times where I can just chain together things and just make really, really big turns with Nykthos. Not playing the full 4, don't want to see one in the opening hand necessarily, but do want to see one throughout the game, and it's not going to hurt the mana base all too much. Opening hands where it's just like Swamp, Nykthos, and then other things like Double Black kind of blow, but yeah, sometimes those are going to happen, but more often than not, Nykthos is better than that. Into the sideboard for Dark Betrayal because, as you'll see later on, considering I'm recording this after the daily event happened, um, Mono Black is in the meta, so kills everything. Most efficient way to kill everything in the matchup. Freakus Cure. Also, depending on the type of Mono Black, there's a more aggressive version that plays like Tormented Heroes, Ordeals of Erebos, and such. Less Grey Merchants, less maybe Night Howlers and stuff like that. Um, so that hits there. This also hits like the blue-white heroic deck, and even the black-red heroic, not heroic deck, the black-red kind of aggressive beatdown deck to some extent. But Freakus Cure definitely less exciting than, say, Bile Blights for the most part. And maybe even to some extent Hero's Downfall. Like, Freakus Cure is never going to kill a Stormbreath Dragon. Hero's Downfall, Guild do. I like the Mogus Marauders. in any deck that's against any deck that's not black because it just gives me those final points of reach. They're just awesome that way. The original configuration that I had of the deck also had two Whip of Erebos. Um, yeah, it had two Whip of Erebos, one less Mogus Marauder, and one less Guild. One less Guild, one less Mogus Marauder. Um, which I could see going back to that, but I haven't had the occasion for Whip to be super good. I think I'm in the mindset where I might be bringing back Whip because if I've been seeing more and more of the aggressive, the super hyper aggressive black version of this deck, and Whip is just really hard for them to race. Plus, there's no like artifact or enchantment destruction in these kind of decks besides like Guild, and that only hits creatures. I guess enchantment creature. So I'm considering that plus two Mogus Marauders is always fine. If I hit the one, then I can probably end up winning if they're in a board stall type position. Um, Guild, I like just having access to another one just in case there's bigger creatures that like maybe Bioblight doesn't hit, like the red, green X type decks um, that play Sylvan Caryatid rather than Voyaging Satyr or just Sylvan Caryatid. Bioblight is worse against because there's really nothing that they hit. Uh, Erebos, it's pretty sweet in the mirror if you can end up getting there. Less good in the super aggressive, but it prevents their gray merchants from doing things, and I've had him active more than my fair share of times, so it ends up working. Plus the being able to draw a card when you don't say have Painseer active, or it can get there. Drown in Sorrow largely against the heroic decks or the red, blue, white heroic type decks. Haven't found much occasion to side them in, but there's definitely a place for those. And I mean, now that I'm talking about it a little more, I still think I might end up cutting a Freaka's Cure Mogus Marauder, keep the third guild in sideboard for the two Whip of Erebos, because Mogus Marauder is I do only want the two really for the decks that he's good in. The three is not necessarily the greatest, and the Freakish Cure is underwhelming. Like I said, most of the time I am going to want to Bile Blight. So that's kind of the way the deck is. Obviously, the a linear type of strategy, but I enjoy playing it, and I'm going to continue playing it. I feel like it doesn't do all too bad, and it's well positioned enough. There have been it might be falling out of favor recently. The more I've been playing over the past couple days, the less and less prevalent the Naya midrange of the pre-Born of the Gods Theros block constructed decks have existed. If you go on the website that I use more often than not is mtgpulse.com, and you can see a bunch of deck lists. And if you go back to before Born of the Gods was released online, all of Theros block was their daily events for Gaze. It was just top eight. All of the 8 decks were 9 mid range, 9 mid range, 9 mid range, all the same construction. This deck does really well against that type of deck. It does really well against red green X. So that's why I continued to play it, because they were big. Uh, has a little bit less of a good time against red, white, black, which I've seen pop up here and there, just because they do have access to Thoughtseize and a little bit better. I won't necessarily better removal, but more removal. They've got like the Bioblight. It's a little taxing on their mana, but ends up working. They also have Heroes Downfall Guild. They mostly play it for the Guild as well because it fixes their mana. But that deck is a little harder to beat because of that sweet haha removal suite. And I haven't played too much against the heroic decks. I played a couple times, but it was largely just a train wreck for me. And recently, I've seen the aggressive version a little bit more. So the reason I didn't play the Tormented Hero variety is it seemed like it was a little bit worse against the monstrous, the block constructed version of the standard version of red green monsters, if you will, the Naya decks, because that one removal spell would be because they're more able to two for one and of the tormented hero ordeal, and those decks have less reach, whereas this deck has the punch in the beginning and then reach at the end. So like it a little bit more. That's where I am right now. Maybe things will change up a little bit. Like I said, I'm still thinking about making those couple changes, maybe bringing in the whip, Mogus Marauder down, Freakaskir down, still tweak it just a little bit. You'll be seeing me in the daily event coming up, so hopefully you enjoyed that. In the search, last couple days of season 3, got to get up to those 15 QPs, and having lots of fun doing it. Comment, subscribe, like our videos, manabluff.com. You'll see RJH, Mr. Ryan Hill, posting a bunch of limited stuff. I'll be doing that as well, but I'd like to take a little sidetrack, if you will. I'm trying to find the word. I can't really quite think of it. Having a little fun with something a little bit different. So more of this to come. Hopefully you enjoy the actual rounds of play.